Good evening. My name is SJ. Tonight's story is the story of Aranor, the starlight singer of the Greenwood. There are places in Middle-earth where magic lingers like morning dew, where the veil between the ordinary and extraordinary grows thin as gossamer, and where time itself seems to flow by different rules. The Woodland Realm is one such place, nestled beneath the ancient boughs of what men call Mirkwood, though the elves remember older, gentler names for their forest home. Here, in the northern reaches, where the shadow of the south rarely creeps, the woods retain their primordial enchantment. The trees grow tall and wise, their trunks wider than the embrace of 20 men, their uppermost branches reaching toward stars that seem to shine more brightly than anywhere else in Middle-earth. These are not the dark and twisted trees of southern Mirkwood, but rather the proud descendants of the first forests that grew when the world was young, and the light of the two trees still blessed the lands of the west. In autumn, when this tale takes place, the Woodland Realm transforms into a tapestry of gold and copper, rich burgundy and burning amber. The very air seems to shimmer with magic as leaves spiral down from the canopy in lazy dancing patterns that speak more of elvish design than mere chance. Streams and brooks wind their way through the forest floor like threads of liquid starlight, their songs changing with the seasons but never falling silent. The Wood-elves who dwell here are different from their kin in other lands. They are less interested in the crafting of jewels or the forging of rings of power, finding their magic instead in the subtle arts of starlight and song, in the gentle whispers of growing things, and in the ancient harmonies that have echoed through these woods since the first age of the world. They build their dwellings in harmony with the forest, some in elegant telane high among the branches, others in halls shaped from living wood, and a few in the hollow hearts of the most ancient trees. Time passes strangely in the Woodland Realm. Minutes might stretch like hours when the afternoon sun filters through the golden canopy, while entire nights can slip by like moments during the great starlight festivals when the Wood-elves dance and sing under the wheeling constellation. The very air is thick with memories, not the dusty, forgotten kind, but living memories that swirl like autumn leaves in the breeze, carrying fragments of songs sung thousands of years ago, echoes of laughter from festivals long past, and whispers of tales that have never been written in any book. It is said by some that the forest itself keeps a record of all that has transpired beneath its boughs, storing ancient songs in its roots and forgotten stories in its leaves. The eldest of the Wood-elves know how to read these signs, how to listen to the endless song of the forest, and understand its many voices. But even among these ancient ones, some possess deeper gifts, rarer abilities to commune with the very soul of the woodland. One such elf was Aranor, and this is his tale. In the ancient forests of the Woodland Realm, where shadows danced with starlight, and time flowed like honey through the twisted branches of age-old trees, there lived an elf named Aranor. Even among the immortal Eldar, he was considered old, having walked beneath these boughs since before the first men awoke in the east. His silver hair caught the filtered sunlight like threads of mithril, and his eyes held the deep wisdom of countless summers and winters passed in quiet observation of the forest's ways. Unlike many of his kin who dwelt in the grand halls of the Elven King, Aranor had made his home in the heart of an ancient oak tree, its vast hollow carefully shaped over centuries by elvish song and patience. Spiral stairs wound their way up the living wood, leading to chambers filled with soft light that seemed to emanate from the tree itself. Delicate lanterns of silver and crystal hung from the branches, their gentle glow attracting moths with wings like scattered stardust. His particular gift, rare even among the Eldar, was the ability to hear and translate the songs of the forest itself. Every leaf and branch had its own melody, every stream its own chorus, and Aranor had spent millennia learning their infinite variations. The Wood-elves called him the Forest Whisperer, though he preferred his simple name in simpler ways. On this night, as the autumn stars began their slow dance across the heaven, Aranor sat upon his favorite branch, high among the canopy, where the leaves whispered their ancient secrets. His fingers moved gracefully across the strings of his lap harp, weaving together the songs of stars and trees into melodies that drifted through the forest like morning mist. Below, the nightly chorus of the woodland was beginning. Nightingales added their sweet voices to his music, and in the distance, a family of deer stepped silently through the underbrush, their hooves barely disturbing the carpet of fallen leaves. Even the great spiders that lurked in the darker parts of the forest kept their distance from this place, for Aranor's songs carried power as well as beauty. As he played, a young fox emerged from the shadows beneath his tree. This was no ordinary creature, but one of the rare speaking foxes of the greenwood, descendants of those who had learned the gift of speech from the first elves to walk beneath these boughs. Her russet fur gleamed like polished copper in the starlight, and her eyes held an intelligence that spoke of ancient bloodlines. Master Aranor, she called softly, her voice musical as all things were in the Woodland Realm. The trees are restless tonight. They speak of changes in the wind. Aranor's fingers stilled on the harp strings, though the echoes of his music continued to resonate through the branches. Indeed, little sister, he replied, his voice as soft as falling leaves. I have heard their whispers. Come, join me in my dwelling, and we shall speak of what troubles the ancient ones. With practiced grace, he descended the spiral stairs, the fox following with silent steps. In his main chamber, a room that seemed to breathe with the living wood around it, Aranor prepared tea in the manner of his people. The water came from a spring deep in the forest, heated in a kettle of silver and crystal. The tea leaves themselves were gathered by moonlight from secret glades known only to the oldest of the Wood-elves. As he poured the tea into delicate cups that seemed to have grown rather than been made, the fox, who was called Rustalith in the elvish tongue, settled herself on a cushion woven from spider silk and moonbeams. The room was filled with curious things gathered over millennia. Shelves of books whose pages whispered their stories in the quiet hours. Crystals that caught and held starlight, and vials of morning dew collected from every season since the Second Age. The oldest oak speaks of darkness stirring in the south, Rustalith said, lapping delicately at her tea. Not the shadow we know, but something different. Something that brings change rather than danger. Aranor nodded slowly, his ancient eyes distant with memory. The forest has seen many changes, little sister. Some that seemed dark at first brought new life in their wake. He rose and moved to a shelf where a simple wooden box sat among his treasures. Opening it, he removed a single seed that gleamed like a pearl in his palm. This came from the first tree I ever sang to. When the world was younger and the stars brighter, he explained. It has waited all these ages for the right moment to be planted. Perhaps that time approaches at last. The fox's ears perked with interest. Is it true that you remember the awakening of the first trees? Aranor's laugh was like wind through silver bells. Not quite so old am I, though sometimes it feels as though I might be. But I do remember when the great oaks were saplings and the beeches had not yet learned to whisper amongst themselves. He returned to his seat, cradling the seed with reverence. Would you like to hear the tale? Rustalith settled more comfortably on her cushion, wrapping her tail around her paws. The night is young, and tales told by the Eldar are always worth hearing. So Aranor began to sing, his voice weaving pictures in the air of a younger forest, when the trees were still learning their first songs, and the stars were new in the sky. As he sang, the very walls of his dwelling seemed to pulse with remembered light, and small creatures of the forest gathered at his windows to listen. Mice with ears like dried leaves, owls whose feathers shimmered with starlight, and moths that danced in the gentle air currents. He sang of the first wood-elves who came to the greenwood, how they learned to speak with tree and beast, and how they discovered that music was the true language of all living things. His song told of the great dances under starlight, when elves and trees moved together in patterns that wrote their stories into the very soil of the forest. As the night deepened, his melody shifted to speak of the changing seasons he had witnessed. Countless springs that brought new life, summers rich with growth, autumns painted in gold and crimson, and winters that wrapped the forest in silver silence. Each season had its own song, its own dance, its own wisdom to share with those who knew how to listen. Rustalith's eyes grew heavy with the weight of ancient memory, though she struggled to stay awake, not wanting to miss a single note. Aranor's voice grew softer, gentler, as he sang of the quiet moments between great events, the daily miracles of dewdrops catching the first light of dawn, of seedlings pushing through rich earth toward the sun, of starlight painting silver paths through the darkness. The seed in his palm began to glow softly, responding to the music that had shaped the forest for so many ages. Outside, the trees swayed gently, though there was no wind, their leaves adding their own harmonies to Aranor's song. Even the stars seemed to shine more brightly, as if leaning down to listen to tales of the early days of Arda. As midnight approached, bringing with it the deepest silence of the forest, Aranor's song gradually faded to a gentle humming that blended with the natural sounds of the woodland night. Rustalith had drifted into dreams filled with dancing trees and singing stars, her breathing deep and peaceful. The old elf carefully draped a blanket woven from moonbeams over his sleeping friend, then returned to his seat by the window. The seed still glowed faintly in his palm, its light pulsing in rhythm with the sleeping forest. Tomorrow, perhaps, would be the day to plant it, to begin a new song that would continue long after he had departed for the western shores. But for now, he was content to sit in his ancient tree home, listening to the harmony of all living things as they dreamed their quiet dreams beneath the eternal stars. His fingers returned to the strings of his lap harp, playing a melody so soft it might have been mistaken for the sound of starlight falling through leaves. And so the night passed in the Woodland Realm, where an ancient elf kept watch over the sleeping forest, his music joining with the songs of trees and stars in the endless symphony of Middle-earth. Those who were awake in that hour, be they elf, animal, or tree, felt peace settle over the forest like a blanket of starlight, carrying them gently into dreams of ages past and ages yet to come. In the deepest part of night, when even the oldest trees dozed in their ancient dreams, Aranor's music became one with the forest itself, the barrier between musician and melody, between singer and song, dissolved until there was only the eternal dance of starlight and shadow, of growth and rest, of endings and beginnings. And in that perfect harmony, the forest cradled all its children, from the youngest seedling to the oldest elf, in the timeless embrace of night in the Woodland Realm.